Hello and welcome to Watches Tonight. I'm your host, Tim Mosso. We got Garrett on the switcher. This is the A-Team. This evening, small is beautiful, and we're discussing the best small watches to buy in 2026. Also, I chat live and we share your wrist shots tonight on Watches Tonight. Let's fire up the chat box. We've got Miroslav from Europe, Jim Millett from the UK. Welcome to one and all. We're happy to have you with us. We got I Want to Watch, Sutats, and Artaud Charles from New York City. Welcome to all. Thomas Burnett, glad to see you here. Keep it coming, guys. Check out my Instagram while we're warming up. Do me a favor. Help fill the gap, Tim_Mosso on Instagram, where you can see my 60-second reviews and thousands of them, plus some windows into the life of Tim Mosso, including family, bikes, cars, and pugs. You'll love it, trust me. It's the official after party of Watches Tonight. Dr. B, Edward Ledden of Sweden, Matthew K, Dr. Kevin Moore, welcome to one and all. Instant gratification, viewer wrist shots, number one. Jeff S is back with his Chapek Antarctique Rattrapant, RUR. You can see the robot head at the top. That's how you know it's the RUR. JJ and Mrs. JJ sport a his and hers 2025 Rolex Land Dweller shot with both the 40 and the 36. We've got Kai S, who's at the Rocky Mountain Emmy Awards with his 1916 sourced Patek Philippe 5960. Thank you for trusting our company. I hope you won. We have Dr. B, who rolls in his Bentley Bentayga SUV with Harry Winston Accenter Retrograde. Congratulations on thinking differently, Dr. B. We have Cess1, who resurfaces the Bentley of dive watches. Blancpain's 50 Fathoms, the diver that I will own next. Guys, Kurt W. and his Zenith Dayfi Skyline Skeleton report from a crypto conference in Miami, and he adds that he is a Bitcoin historian with CoinGeek. All right, guys, send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at the1916company.com to see your pieces on these pixels. And actually, if you like vintage, you can also send them to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com. All right, Goldfinger, Robert, Junior Johnson, Stephen R. staying up late in Liverpool with us, Jenks from Mid Wales doing the same. We've got Kaloy, we've got Eric G. from the Netherlands staying up late in continental Europe, Michael everywhere, Carrie B. from Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, and we've got Richard Combs, an old friend of the show from South Florida. Guys, the best small watches for men and women, and trust me, there are some topics that mean more to me than others. This is a big one. I've heard it said that the smaller the watch, the more expensive it is. Now, Greubel Forsey would have some strong words for anyone who takes that too literally, but there is something to it. Look at Invicta or TW Steel, and you start to see where this started. The watch trend of the 2000s was endlessly huger, as everything seemed to get bigger, and bigger was better, and biggest was best. And like Castle Bravo, the most disastrous nuclear fallout of all time, we're still dealing with the fallout, if you will, of the 2000s excess, the immortal Royal Oak Offshore Survivor. Tonight, we're completing our full circle journey back to the 1980s and 90s case sizes. Not necessarily with watches from that era, though there are a few. But since I've found more women are becoming committed to watch collecting these days, and a lot of them like the same thing guys like, but I'm also choosing watches with smaller wrists in mind, both because it's a more sophisticated male client and because we have these very hardcore female collectors getting into the biz now. Frankly, a lot of these pieces just flat out speak to me, so you're going to see some of my personal favorites. Let's start with a brand I have given endless grief, and I'm going to say nice things about Audemars Piguet tonight. So let's talk about the Audemars Piguet Star Wheel of 1991. This is reference 25720. Guys, this was a breakthrough watch when it came out. First of all, the idea of using sapphire as part of the movement was an absolute bolt of lightning. It looks as cool today as it did then, and if you're trying to figure out what time it is, just look at the number. It's 5. Where is it pointed? Roughly a 3. It's 5:33. Very simple to read. Lots to love. 36 millimeters, easy for anyone to wear, JLC base caliber, wandering hours complication, and guilloche. In fact, you could get more than guilloche. There were fully engraved dials. And by the way, platinum models also exist. It is a perfect fit. And you can see right there on my little wrist, it's a lovely piece. This is the kind of watch that made Audemars Piguet Holy Trinity. This came out before a single Royal Oak Offshore limited edition was even conceived. And it is the best of Audemars Piguet and the Valet du Jeu. So, I'm going to try to keep this a feature of each watch we discuss tonight, but what should you be paying for one of these in late 2025? I would say that somewhere between $34,000 and $38,000 should get you a full boxed set if you want it in the original yellow gold. Now, if you want something more than this watch, if you want engraving, if you want another metal like platinum, something that's going to be a lot more exclusive, then it's going to cost you more and you could be spending upwards of $50,000. But the good old girl, the yellow gold with the guilloche, you don't need any more. Get it in good shape. These have been over polished frequently, and you will have a companion for life, something that will look just as good in 2091 when the centennial of the Star Wheel arrives. And I would say compared to the Code 1159 Star Wheel, which is a huge watch, this is really elegant. This is true sophistication. Okay, AP, I'm going to keep saying nice things about you. So if at all possible, take this as a very strong suggestion that you might want to rediscover some of these segments. The AP John Schaefer minute repeater. These were made as a tribute to the 1920s American industrialist John Schaefer and a distinctive watch he had made in a case like this. But the minute repeaters specifically, this is the 25839 here, they were made from 1995 to 1998, maybe 1999, and just a little bit over 200 of all variants were made. 36 millimeters in diameter, but now only 40.6 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip. This is a really compact package. And make no mistake, it was a men's watch in its day. It remains one to this day. But because it is a democratically sized watch, anyone can have the thrill of wearing an Audemars Piguet APRP jump hour minute repeater. And we're going to get into pricing, and it's probably a lot less than you think. But this watch had everything going on. The ultimate small watch? Maybe. Many would say so. Minute repeater, jump hour, compact, beautifully made. This watch, take a look at this case back. This was the very beginning of Audemars Piguet display casebacks, and my goodness, does this D-Series watch deliver. First of all, look at the caseback, and I mean the caseback itself, not the movement. Back in the mid-90s, they were still freehand engraving the name of the watch as well as the serial number. That is low volume. Now look at the movement, gorgeous, traditional center wheel, black polished strikers. You've got a set of individual finger bridges down to the escapement. Oh my God, and the size of this movement compared to the watch, astonishing things. This was from a time when nobody questioned that AP was the peer, at least, of non-manufacturer Vacheron Constantin and the highly conservative Patek Philippe. Believe it or not, we had one of these watches this year, and the price we asked, this was before negotiation. This was like the face value asked. It was 75 grand. So if you're considering how rare and special these are, guys, male or female, don't miss the opportunity if one of these presents itself. They don't come up often, but when they do, they're often an absolute bargain. Jim Millett, weekly shout out to the Talking Time with Tim Mosso Facebook group. It's true, I like to say that we are not the biggest watch community on Facebook, but we are the most civilized, and there's something to be said for that in the wild west of the internet. The worldwide wild web. Okay, we got Thomas Burnett saying, love the original 1991 Star Wheel. We have Baltimore Spirits afternoon, my man. He actually sent me a wonderful bottle of American Baltimore distilled bourbon whiskey. Really great stuff. Dr. Stephen E., or we got Stephen E. getting a salutation from Dr. Kevin Moore. Welcome Stephen E. from Detroit. Welcome Paul Steinberg from New Jersey. Welcome Sandeep. Welcome to Eric G. and Carrie B. Carrie B. saying, also planning on adding a Blancpain 50 Fathoms next. And I don't blame you. Tack joining in from the UK, and we've got Cull Obsidian saying, I almost went for a Star Wheel here, 36,000 pounds, but an amazing deal on a 15202 came up, still hunting for a Star Wheel. Don't give up. Ideally, have both, right? Joshua M. getting up early with us, where it's already tomorrow in New Zealand. And we have Cayenne OC, who just bought a 2025 Gerald Genta designed Credor locomotive. I like them, but then again, I like some of the weird Genta stuff, and I would definitely say that the locomotive is starting to lean towards the designs that he issued in the 1980s, which were almost invariably quite weird, but also lovable. What else is going on in the box? We have JD and Cull Obsidian. I'm wearing a 42mm offshore diver right now. Where's more like a 44? All right. Jumping into AP one more time with the Royal Oak, but not the one you expected. Here we go. Royal Oak annual calendar, the 25920. This is a Royal Oak a lot of folks don't even know about, but if you do, they say as you know, you know. Never heard of this one? Well, late 1990s, 36mm, and I think that's the reason most people haven't heard of it. It was only ever made in a mid-size case. One correction per year, a true annual calendar with a pointer date, which was a very scarce thing back in the 90s. It's a Dubois de Praz annual calendar module on top of a JLC 889 base with an Audemars Piguet dial, case, and bracelet, so it's the best of all possible worlds. Thank you, Sammy Hagar. Now, there are two dial variants. Some people feel more strongly about one or the other. I don't have a strong feeling either way. I like all versions. By the way, you can really see in this picture the difference between a steel case and white gold bezel bolts. They're much warmer in color than stainless steel. So what are you going to pay for one of these? Well, about $30,000 to $35,000, and this is probably a better value than you think, because very few of these were made, and when you break down the two different dials, the fact that it was also available in gold, some of them were sold on straps versus bracelets, there's not a lot of these. This is a very rare piece. You know, 14 790s in the same case size are a dime a dozen, and were made for a really long time. You get one of these, not only do you have a great watch that anyone can wear, but you've got something that's genuinely uncommon. Even a lot of AP fans don't know about this watch, and you can teach them. I would also say this is a great show for those who like to justify watch purchases on the basis that your significant other can also wear them. Now, I'm not going to be presumptuous and assume all of my viewers are men, but the YouTube statistics don't lie, and about 96% of you are. So if you're trying to offer your wife something that she can also wear, it makes sense to pick a watch that is at least plausibly sized for her wrist. And this episode is all about those watches. Eric Nielsen saying, dude, I love the locomotive. We are mutually supportive here. Ben 10, he's in the box. He's going to be on your screen. We got Hop Hayes from the World Capital of Speed in Indianapolis, Indiana, and Elizabeth Grant joining in. I'm happy to see that we have our ladies as well. I respect that. We are Venom, one of our friends and past collector conversations. We've also got Sutats and B&S saying it's difficult to share a bracelet watch. True, you do have to size them. But then again, it's a Royal Oak, so you can do it with a screwdriver, not a Patek pin sleeve. Viewer wrist shots number 2. Here we go. Andre Z of New Jersey is joined by the Omega Silver Snoopy, dedicated to a fake dog, and Lucky, who's a real dog. We have Ed K of California, shares his JS Watch Co. Automatic 101 from Iceland. Very cool. And we've got Ben 10, he's in your box, I promised you, he's on your screen now, with the double level movement of the landmark Jaeger-LeCoultre Duo plan, this one from the 1940s. We talked about smaller watches, and here you go. That is a case study in good taste. That'll look great in 100 years. Kerry B is in New Orleans French Quarter with his Oris Ben Parker and some live street jazz. Very cool, my man. John D rides with his Porsche-designed Bund chronograph in the Porsche Cayenne SUV. Guys, we love our watches and wheels. Keep them coming. Wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at the1916company.com to see your passion in this fashion. Moto Gunner from Athens, Georgia. We got Frank M in the box. A lot of old friends joining in. We have the most loyal and civilized audience on YouTube, and trust me, that is quite a feat. The best small watches for men and women in 2026. Guys, sometimes what is next is what actually came last. We have to look to the past to foresee the future. Let's take a look at sports watches, the perennial favorite among watch collectors of all genders. So, in general, this is not a genre that lends itself to smaller sizes, but elephantitis of sports watches is a relatively modern phenomenon, so for some of these we're going to look back just a little bit. Check out the old Mark 11s of the 40s and the Rolex Oyster Perpetuals of the 50s to see what I mean. True sports watches used to be quite compact. So let's start with something from my childhood, the Omega Seamaster Diver 300-meter mid-size. There was a 36.25mm variant of the iconic James Bond Diver 300-meter for many years. It wasn't quartz, wasn't diamond-studded, wasn't awkwardly shaded with colors, designed to appeal to, well, you guessed. But what I'm saying here is that it was not a pander to men or women, just a smaller version, and chronometer certified and mechanical, of the James Bond style Seamaster of the 1990s. It was made for several generations, though it's not currently available. This was a legit smaller watch, and that is it on my wrist in its last generation. I find it perfectly acceptable. I appreciate it and I would enjoy owning it. And I also own the full-size version, so I do truly have a yardstick by which to measure here. What to pay? Well, you're going to be quite pleased to realize that full box, full paper, complete set, unpolished, you won't be out more than $3,000 to $3,500. And this is a true 300-meter diver with every single feature of the 41.5mm full-size watch. It is a great deal, an incredible watch with a lot of presence, and responds really nicely to a custom strap. Okay, jumping in the box, tax saying Dubai Watch Week coming up real soon. Really looking forward to it. The only thing missing from previous years is you, Tim Mosso. Won't be quite the same. I regret missing that one, but I've spent most of the last month out of the office visiting our locations around the country and promoting our watch fairs, and I think this audience on Watches Tonight realizes better than anyone that I was frequently out and unavailable to do the things I love from our headquarters. A big one is this show, so I will be missing Dubai Watch Week this year. I hope the Siddiquis and Dubai Watch Week will bring me back for next year's Off-Year Horology Forum. I would love to get plugged back in because I really do love that group and it's a great event. Bigger than ever this year. It's going to be in the city center, not the financial center, so if you can go, you should go. In the box, Jeff G. I might wear the Seamaster Diver 300-meter tomorrow. Local hero Ed, smaller cases means more options and not worrying about it looking too big from some angles, and I could not agree more. Jim Millett saying Miss M was very pleased for the shout out, and then we have Cull Obsidian saying last year Rolex made a date 8 with an enamel violin dial. Good luck finding it. Hey, even where I live and where I work, that's a rarity. Beckett himself saying my wrist is 16.5 centimeters. I feel comfortable with watches from 36 to 42. I would love to see smaller versions of sports watches. We've got Wissam joining in. We've got Daniel B saying there are no small watches, just big wrists. And then we got Beckett himself. Have you heard anything about a 38mm Vacheron Overseas, Tim? Whispers, yes. Concrete, no. Okay. Blancpain 50 Fathoms, the one you didn't see coming, the 5100, possibly the least acknowledged current reference. The smallest of the modern 50 Fathoms dive watches is not a ladies' watch. It fits me beautifully, as you can see right there with one of my favorite shirts. And I would say that the lug-to-lug at 44mm is incredible. Manna from heaven for small wrist fit, and it's thin. One of the thinnest 300-meter divers you'll find in a genre where almost no watch is thin. This is 10.6mm. Also looks great on a lady's wrist, and yes, that is Blancpain's model right there. My wrist isn't quite as handsome, but you can see that proportionally it's dynamite. Launched in 2017, Reference 5100 is a bit of a rarity, and new or used, you don't see a lot of them around, but it's a qualitative and aesthetic cut above Rolex and Omega dive watches in the same price range, because if you've got one of those, you realize that the Rolex doesn't have a display case back, and the Omegas don't have movements decorated like this. The movement is finished by sophisticated automation, true, but it produces a tangibly better level of decoration than those two competitors I just mentioned, as well as more expensive diving products from upscale rivals like AP and Richard Mille. I'm not saying that these watches from AP, RM, Rolex, and Omega aren't the technical equal, just that Blancpain has put a lot of thought into the aesthetics of a visible movement, and the effort really shows. We have 100-hour power reserve, which is fantastic for a watch this small. It is anti-magnetic with a silicone hairspring, and it's free sprung and 6-position adjusted with a 300-meter dive depth. I love everything I see here. Now, what to pay? It's actually pretty reasonable new, $12,500, which puts it in Submariner territory. Granted, it's on a strap, or $8,500 used with a full boxed set. So this is a great used buy, especially if you can get it with a few years of warranty still intact. And we love that Pelican-style accessory box that comes with the 50 Fathoms. So consider it an awesome piece and an underrated 50 Fathoms. If the 50 Fathoms has taken over Blancpain the way the Royal Oak has taken over Audemars Piguet, I would say this is probably the least acknowledged version of Blancpain's most hyped watch. Vacheron Constantin. We had a question about smaller VCs. Well, here's the reference 4600V, 34.5 millimeters. This Overseas is again not intended specifically for women. And to their credit, VC itself understands that this watch does appeal to both men and women, and they actually model it accordingly on their website. So you're going to see wrists of both male and female persuasion here. It is a dramatic watch with the integration of the bracelet, giving it a much bigger footprint to the effect that it looks more like a 36 or a 37 on the wrist. Still 150 meters water resistant, still anti-magnetic, still has all of the bracelet and strap interchange options, quick releases, and micro adjustments that you get on a full-size Overseas with all of the decoration of those parts as well. At $24,100, you're getting a lot of watch, but some will fault the non-Geneva seal and frankly somewhat generic caliber 1088. It's got Inca block, it's got Edelchron. It doesn't feel like a luxury movement to me, and it's going to be a deal breaker for some, so I'm putting that out there. The watch is $24,100 new, but for a whole lot less, I've got a natural alternative from Vacheron Constantin. The Overseas Generation 1, 37 millimeters. This was a stroke of genius from Vacheron. They had Dino Modolo and Vincent Kaufmann drawing on the inspiration of Jörg Heisig's 222 to create something of enduring beauty. 37 millimeters, 1996 to 2003. This is reference 42040 and 42042. They're the same size externally. The only real difference is the movement. Not originally a unisex watch, but it is today. That's it on my wrist, which you know is 16 centimeters circumference. These are only 8.6 millimeters thick, which is shockingly thin for something that's that water resistant, 150 meters, and automatic. Bracelet quality is top notch. You can see the degree of detailing there, and if anything, it might have been too intricately finished, including mirror polishing on the inside of the links. What do we get? We get a lot. Choice, tritium dials, blue dials, sigma dials, salmon dials, military dials, all exist on this Vacheron Constantin, so you will have many different choices. There is a sigma dial right there. These aren't manufacturer movements, but no pre-2001 Vacheron Constantin movements are. Gerard Perregaux provides the power here, and it's chronometer certified. No subsequent Vacheron Overseas was ever COSC chronometer certified. That is a big advantage of these, and GP is high horology, so that movement belongs there. Now, what are you going to pay? About $15,000 to $20,000, because these are starting to pick up and people realize how fine they are. Also, they're relatively uncommon compared to second generation and third generation Overseas. What you're getting here is a lot of high horology decoration, watchmaking cred, and versatility. So $20,000, full box, full paper, a vintage watch with a Sigma tritium salmon dial, I'd gladly pay 20 grand for that. IWC, giving us what they always do, which is a pilot's watch option. From the 90s here with a smaller case size, the Mark 12 was the long gestating, decades long gestating, successor to the legendary Mark 11. At 36 millimeters, this universally appealing watch doesn't lean too heavily into the technical overkill that is endemic to the pilot's genre. And as a result, I think the Mark 12 is more classically beautiful. This 36mm watch with a very technical flight deck aesthetic is designed to favor legibility above all. And with tritium dials available, it also features a lovely genuine period patina. Inside the case, a Jaeger-LeCoultre caliper 889. So this one has pedigree and history in its favor on every possible level. Anti-magnetic with a soft iron inner cage, water resistant enough that you can swim with it on the surface. Tritium dial, slick bracelet option, which is, well, going to beat the pants off of any beads of rice. That is genuinely awesome, especially since it's partially integrated. $7,500 to $10,000, depending on the condition of the watch, whether it has a bracelet, and of course the boxed set. But that is very reasonable money, especially the way IWC has raised its prices in recent years. Jumping into the box, we got Sean Hansen, a good friend. A little bit late, but we're happy to see him. We've got Amit joining in saying, Tim loves that brown dial overseas. That's actually not the brown dial overseas I normally talk about. Normally when I talk about the brown dial overseas, I mean the third generation one. Surprise, there was also a first generation. We are spoiled for choice with the first generation overseas dials. There are just too many of them. We have a question. Would you recommend buying a Hamilton 42 Murph new or used as a first Swiss watch? I think anytime you can get a repairable Swiss watch used, you're generally getting a better value. And then Andrew T saying there's also the 50 Fathoms trilogy in 40mm. True, the late 90s trilogy pieces and the Concept 2000s were a lot smaller. I don't necessarily find them as appealing. They have a bit of a polarizing look. And then we've got Design Atelier in the box and Adam Abraham catching me live, and I appreciate that too. Billy Vanilli joining in from Nairobi, Kenya, staying up late, and I definitely appreciate that. He's saying bring back the Cellinis. They may. Okay, wrist shots number 3, Jan Dreddy, a good friend of the show in a previous collector conversation. He always brings the heat with something cool and unusual. Carlo Ferrara Regolatore, right there. We have Abdul R of Germany, Trials, the Christopher Ward C63 Sealander GMT Extreme. They let him test it for 1 month. Abdul, if you're in the box, give us the verdict. Neil S posts a 3-generation wrist shot with grandfather, dad, and grandson. We love that. Brian R of Ohio posts a 2-generation wrist shot with his daughter's Flick Flack and his Panerai Luminor Marina. And Chris T of the UK captures a rare J. Sarnowski Druid Lapis and 11-week-old James's, also UK, Share watch. Very cool. Send the wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at the1916company.com to see your analog on my digital. Okay, the best small watches for men and women. Now let's talk about the little giants. By no means are the previous watches anything less than elite and prestigious. But now we're talking about watches so expensive and complicated and exclusive that they prove size really doesn't matter and shouldn't. Wear one of these and you can expect to own the finest watch in any company, even at Watches and Wonders. So let's get started. Going straight for the jugular with Philippe Dufour. That's right. This guy is like the BB King of watchmaking. He is the ultimate and the point of reference for many. I mean, this really is incredible stuff with Dufour that men and women, guys, it's a power watch without the bulk or the bombast. Do we have a shot of the movement there? There we go. Boom. Look what you're getting for your money. Blood, sweat, and tears just for you by one of the greatest who has ever lived. Even that little solid gold nameplate is free-hand engraved. Look at the devil's horns drawn to points, the anglage atop the center wheel, the black polish on the escape wheel cock. Look at how compact it all is and how luminous the stripes are. His simplicity has been offered in 37mm, but this is the 34mm version. It's thin at 8.4mm thick and only 40.5mm lug to lug, as you can see on my little wrist. This is why Dufour is a standout. And this too. He did not disappoint. Let me address the fatigue, though, associated with this kind of decoration. And let's keep this on the screen. When Dufour insisted on this level of detail decades ago, it was virtually unique. and it remains a 1 or 2 horse option at Dufour's workshop. Now, all of the vertically integrated factories and decoration specialists that now cater to the demand for this look cannot conceal the fact that Dufour was the standout in this regard and the exemplar for all subsequent brands who took this route, whether they're Credor in Japan or a neighbor to Dufour like Romain Gauthier in the Vallée du Jeu. We have arrived in a place where this is now more common because of the grace and foresight of Philippe Dufour. If this is the ultimate small watch, expect to pay around $1 million for the ultimate in today's marketplace. I didn't mention Greubel Forsey in that discussion of Dufour knockoffs because they're not one. Greubel Forsey is a business that derives from its founder's experience with Audemars Piguet, Renault et Papy, where they both worked. Time that they spent on restoration of vintage pieces and the traditions of the company's hometown of La Chaux-de-Fonds. In other words, they were not simply cribbing Dufour's style. They had a unique vision drawn on rich experience. And this is a brand I'd never have previously mentioned in a small watch themed discussion because frankly the double tourbillon you're looking at right there is huge. But this is 2025 and even Greubel Forsey has downsized with the acclaimed Nano Foudroyante EWT. At 37.9 millimeters in diameter, this is the first Greubel that is not a stretch for wrists of any size, and that's me again. Look at what you're getting. Flyback chronograph, Foudroyante flying tourbillon, precious metal solid gold dial with fired blue tie. I mean, you're getting all of that, plus it packs a ton of details to justify the price, which is $560,000. This is a smaller Greubel Forsey, not a lesser Greubel Forsey, and it is a return to form for this legendary brand. Going forward, expect fine finish, exclusivity, eye-watering prices, and innovation. Don't expect 500 sports watches a year, and thank God for that. See what's going on in the box. We got Steve Thorpe, we got Josh, we got Jack S. asking, where can you buy a Philippe Dufour? Register your interest. I've reviewed 3 of them to date, so they do show up from time to time. Otherwise, call your favorite auction house and then wait. What else is going on in the box? We got Revan joining in saying, my Grail, 34 to 35 millimeters. My favorite sizes. We got Dr. Kevin Moore, that Nano Foudroyante is Grail worthy, an amazing watch. Check out my full-length review. It's definitely worth your time. I was deeply impressed, and I have high expectations for Greubel Forsey. Check out also my interview with the CEO, Michel. What else going on in the box? We got Adam saying, would never have thought that Simplicity was 34 millimeters. Makes me wish they made a 5177 Breguet in 34. Well, Simplicity's 34 or 37, so you do have some choices. None of them are truly large. And then with some saying, what a watch. BNS saying, I will probably never get to that level of watch collecting, but glad to see them here. I try to share as much as I can because, like you, I can't afford much of this stuff, but I still want to know. Patek Philippe 3970, the 1985 successor to the long-running 2499, was significantly smaller than its 37.5 millimeter predecessor and its successor, the 40mm 5970. From 1985 to 2004, the 36.2 millimeter 3970 was Patek's signature watch, the perpetual calendar chronograph. Anyone can wear this watch, which is 43.5 millimeters lug to lug, so everyone gets to play and enjoy. Today, the Lemania-based caliber 2770 is rightly regarded as a classic and highly sought by collectors of Patek Philippe watches. There's a lot of bad ones floating around on the market, and by that I mean no box, no papers, damaged, poorly serviced, unserviced, and overpolished. But a good 3970 in rose gold, which is pretty much the middle of the market, a good 3970R, is going to set you back around $200,000 with a full set, minimal or no polishing. Obviously, count on more if you want to get it in platinum, less if you're satisfied with yellow gold, and rare integrated bracelets like this one are going to cost you a pretty penny. They will not overwhelm a small wrist, however. Okay, this is where we get really interesting, because you may not know that the most expensive watch you would like to own and your Grail watch are not always one and the same. Believe it or not, my Grail watch and my Win the Lotto watch are not the same timepiece. My Debitune DBD was and remains my Grail. It was the absolute peak priority for me as a collector and the watch I desired above all else. Now that I have it, I desire to keep it until I die, to be willed to a Swiss museum when I pass away, so it will never be flipped by a younger relative or repolished by an aftermarket dealer. So I understand when you're surprised to learn that it's not the most expensive watch on my wish list, past or present, only the first in priority and precedence. Naturally, you want to know what watch is more expensive than my Grail, but somehow less coveted, but not much less coveted. That watch is my idea of watchmaking perfection, the Patek Philippe 5016, and there it is with my famed green glasses and the old watchyouwant.com YouTube channel. I'm lucky just to have held and worn this 36.2 millimeter gem, launched in 1993 and sunset around 2011, although special pieces were made afterwards. The watch is a COSC certified chronometer. Yes, as a Patek Philippe, it's certified. Retrograde perpetual calendar, moon phase, minute repeater, and a tourbillon with a wild 14-karat gold third wheel that some people call the octopus, even though it has only 5 arms. This is the kind of watch that requires an auction, and that auction is for my organs, so I can buy it. Sadly, I still think I would come up short. Briefly, this was the most expensive model of wristwatch ever bought via a unique steel example with blue dial in enamel that sold at Only Watch in 2015. I want to say it was 7,300,000 Swiss francs, or the equivalent of over 10 million US dollars back then, but that's the Only Watch in the record setter. What to pay today? Hard to say because the market is all over the place for these, but it's going to be somewhere between $500,000 for the least desirable version and maybe 1.5 for the most desirable version that's not somehow a piece unique or a special commission. The 200 or so of these in the world do differ a bit in production quantity and desirability, but believe me when I say I would take absolutely any 5016 in a heartbeat, and I would trade a ventricle for it. I do love my DBD more than I love the 5016, and I would not trade up, so to speak. But the 5016 is the most expensive watch still on my shopping list. Viewer wrist shots number 4. Kudzu Man is in Bangkok on his way to Phuket with his Seiko, and I love to see it. Moto Gunner of Georgia, he's in the box, and now he's on your screen with his Christopher Ward 12 in Nordic Blue. Dewey W enjoys the rare and exotic Armstrong Edge double barrel that debuted with Mr. Edge, the comic, or I guess I should say the graphic novel drawing, in 2016. Look up Mr. Edge, you'll see the robot I'm talking about. Richard G reports from Central Florida Watch Meetup with 3 stone dial Rado Balboas, and Kristen of Ohio takes us home with the late great Cartier Roadster behind the wheel of her 2025 VW GLI Autobahn. Send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at the1916company.com to see your wrist on my list. Guys, this was an absolute blast. Thanks to Garrett, who is always lightning quick on the switcher, and thanks to all of you in the chat box for making the best job in watches possible. Until next week, guys, time out.